Welcome to NFL World, where NFL starts and ends. I'm your host, Jacob, and we're just going to go with it. To begin, let's talk about the frustration in New York, in the Big Apple. First of all, both the Jets and the Giants have struggled this year. That's not an exaggeration. The Jets are 4-5, the Giants are 2-8. There is concern if I'm the Giants, mainly because look, you gave Tommy DeVito no chance in this game. Let's be honest. He did as much as he could do, but the Cowboys defense is too good. It's too talented. They move too fast. Asking him, okay, compete with this defense, and also their offense can score points. Not gonna happen. It's nothing you've seen before. He got sacked 5 times. The team itself wasn't offensively runs through Saquon, which the Cowboys pretty much hemmed up the whole game. You had no chance. For the Jets, and I say this about the Patriots too. I'm not trying to be. I'm not a GM. I don't set up a roster. But the mistakes that both those teams make, the Patriots and the Jets, is based on their roster construction. To begin with the Jets, it's they like I understand Zach is not supposed to be the quarterback, but you make it so much harder on him when you have guys like your defense is great. They're going to be great. You're holding the teams to 16 to 20 points a game. That's impressive, but you can't rely on that all the time. You've got to find a run game, and they had a little bit of a run game against the Raiders. The problem is every time the Jets have a positive play, they have 2 negative plays, and it kills the drive. They're not good enough. They don't have the quarterback. They're not good enough to go and say, you know what? We can get 2 negative plays and we'll still get the first down. We'll keep the chains moving. You can't do that. You're not good enough. So you got to figure out how to slow that down. They had 2 touchdowns that were brought back because of penalties. That would have been touchdowns, and you don't have to settle for a field goal. You're up. Like Chris Collinsworth said this last night. He said the Jets should be or should have been up 21-3 or 21-6, but they can't score in the red zone. They really can't. And they still have a chance to win. But it's like, how are you going to deal with this if you're making these kinds of mistakes? That can't happen. So, yes, there's frustration in New York because your 2 teams, the Jets and the Giants, are both have a total of 6 wins and 12 losses. And this is not how you predicted these 2 seasons to go when you brought in Aaron Rodgers. You have the coach of the year and Brian Daboll to go and have a combined record of 6-12. Not expecting this at all. Moving on to the Patriots. Is Belichick on his way out? We've been asking this question for a couple months now. And I said that he's not on his way out. And the reason I say he's not on his way out is because he signed a contract extension, which he could be petty enough to go and say, I'm going to wait my time out. He could do that. Or they could fire him. But what are you going to do with this roster? The problem is you're firing a guy who is the GM and the coach. So you're giving that up. So who are you going to bring in? Like that's the issue. You've not had a GM ever, or in the last 20-something years, 24 years. You're not going to be able to do that. You don't have a GM. So you got to get a new GM. You got to get a coach that you trust. That's a big jump, and asking, like, Gerard Mayo to do that is too much. And if you keep Belichick only as a GM and not a coach, that's a slap in his face. But if you do it the other way, it's a slap in his face. If you keep him as a coach but not a GM, it's a slap in his face. So I don't see Belichick leaving, at least until his contract is up. But I keep coming back to this, and I was thinking about this yesterday, and I really pondered on it. I really did. And I was like, who is going to take this roster from where it is right now and get them to a playoff with the same exact roster? There's nobody. There's nobody. You can't. This roster is so far gone that it's bad. It's decomposing as we speak. And you can make the case of after the Falcons Patriots Super Bowl in 2017, and even really before that, you can make the case that this roster really started to go downhill. But you still had Tom Brady, so you were going to still remain in the playoffs. You were going to be fine. But that's what it reminds me of. The Patriots of yesteryear are no longer here. And you saw that because when they went and played the Rams in that Super Bowl in 19, they won. It was a great defensive game plan, but the roster was so much worse. You had guys who are older now, obviously, but the offense ran through Brady, Edelman, Gronk, and the run game. That's what it ran through. Everyone else, so every other player, not as good. The offensive line has continued to get worse. The tight end position after Gronk left has been bad. The wide receivers after Brady left have not been able to stay on their own 2 feet. Edelman was the only guy that could really get open. Now Edelman's gone. So you got places that can't do things. And on defense, you've gotten worse. You lose Devin McCourty. He retires. Jason McCourty leaves after the Super Bowl. You lose Stephon Gilmore after that Super Bowl. And then you continuously got worse as the team got worse. So there's a concern, I think, about this roster. It's not just Mac Jones, it's everything. You could not win with this roster. I truly don't think you can. And we said, well, they just need another quarterback. They just need another quarterback, and they could show something. I don't know if they could. I don't know if they could. You bench Mac Jones in the game against the Colts because the Colts and Bailey Zappi made a couple good throws, threw an interception to end the game. But the game was pretty much over by that point, and the only reason why Bailey Zappi started to complete passes because the Colts defense is not that good. But still, your defense shows promise. They only gave up 10 points. Now, whether that's because the Colts offense is not that good or because the Patriots defense is actually holding on their own. But whatever the case may be, this is a problem. And it took me back because this week NFL on Fox went and did the Veterans Show in Colorado Springs, Colorado. And they had Greg Popovich because Greg Popovich was in the Air Force in the 70s before he became the coach of the Spurs. And it brought me back to that when it was I can't remember who said it, but it's a true point. After Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili left and Kawhi Leonard, when they left, when they retired or moved on or did anything else, they team was not as good and they didn't win as much. And you kept saying, Pop doesn't know how to coach. Coach Pop doesn't know how to coach. He's got to get out of here. Then they get the number 1 pick and they draft Victor Wembanyama. And all of a sudden, Coach Pop knows how to coach again because they drafted Wemby. That's what they did. And it worked. So I'm not saying Belichick doesn't know how to coach, but this roster's not good enough to even when you can just see the frustration in his face week after week after week build. The game against the Patriots and Cowboys, at one point he has his hand over his face. He can't believe what's happening. Not just are they losing, they're losing badly. The same thing happened in this game against the Colts. They throw an interception. You see his hands are like this. He can't believe what is happening. There's so much stress that he's having to go with. And again, I don't see Belichick on his way out, but this roster has to get better. That's why I keep saying, what about you don't take his GM title away. You don't take his head coaching title away, but you bring somebody in as like a consultant to help with the draft because this team is not good enough. They're not good enough. They don't spend a lot of money at the wide receiver position besides Juju Smith-Schuster, who's in and out of the lineup. He's not a number 1. He's not been a number 1. Devontae Parker can't be your number 1. Kendrick Bourne, you're one of your speed guys. He tore his ACL. He's gone. He's a free agent next year. Traquan Thornton's been out of the lineup a lot because of injuries, but he's your other speed guy. You can't really get him the ball. Douglas, the rookie, he's been one of the better players, but and one of their speedsters, and they got to get him more involved, but they can't. Jalen Reagor is playing as a wide receiver for them. That's how bad they are. So there's concerns all the way around on this Patriots front. But I think it's much more than Belichick. If Belichick's gone, this team is good. No. Because if Belichick leaves, so does Steve Belichick. So you lose your DC as well as your head coach and the GM with a bad roster. And you saw that's what the Giants have had to do with after Gettleman left. They have a bad roster, so they have to try and revamp as quickly as they can. It's not working. So not just that, you got the roster's bad. Your quarterback is not great, but if you bring another quarterback, you're in the Chicago Bears position of let's just keep drafting quarterbacks and hope our roster does its job when it's not good. It's not going to happen. So if you get rid of Belichick, you get rid of his son Steve Belichick, you lose your head coach, your defensive coordinator, your GM with a bad roster. Your quarterback is not great. Your defense and your offense and defense are not that good. It's a mess. It's more than 1 or 2 people. It's the entirety of the team and their inability to get a much more talented roster, which Belichick was able to get away with when he had Tom Brady. All right. Moving on into the NFL set a record this week as most game-winning kicks hitting game-winning field goals as time expired. This was the most in league history. 5 kickers hit game winners. Matt Prater of the Arizona Cardinals, as the Cardinals faced the Atlanta Falcons and Kyler Murray's return. Matt Prater hit a 23-yard game winner as Arizona beats Atlanta 25-23. Detroit, in a wild game against the Chargers, Riley Patterson hit a 41-yarder as the Lions edge the Chargers. We'll talk a little bit more about that game in the recap section of this. The Seahawks, Jason Myers hit a game-winning 43-yard field goal against the Commanders as Seattle beats Commanders 29-26. The Browns, in a shocker, we'll talk about this game too, against the Ravens. Hopkins game winner, 40-yard game winner as the Browns edge the Ravens 33-31. That was Dustin Hopkins, just to be fair. And the Texans beat the Bengals 30-27 as Matt Amendola hit a game winner 38-yard field goal. So those are five. And it tells you a lot of how this season's starting to go. These games are closer, 3, 7, 10 points, and it goes the other way. That's just how simple this season's been, and it's not a bad thing. I'm not complaining. I like it this way. I like it when we don't know who's gonna win. I prefer that. I mean, don't get me wrong, you want your team to win by a lot, but if you can have that, I'm thrilled. Next up, the Dolphins. This happened about a month back. The Dolphins have been selected to be on HBO's in-season Hard Knocks team in 2023. This debuts on November 21st, which, if I remember correctly, that is in a week from now. It will start November 21st at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, which is actually nice to say because they've been starting them at 10 for the past month, a couple years, and how are you gonna watch that? It makes no sense. The new season will run through January 9 every Tuesday. And the Dolphins are 6-3 and are currently first place in the AFC East. Tua, Tyreek Hill, and Mike McDaniel are going to be pretty entertaining. And this finally the Hard Knocks gets a team that's actually pretty good because the last couple years the last 2 years that they've done this, their teams have not made the playoffs. The team should make the playoffs, and let's see what happens. But otherwise, yeah, this should be a good stop for Hard Knocks in season because it's also one of the more interesting places with Tua, with McDaniel and Tyreek, Jalen Waddle, that defense and what Vic Fangio has done. I can't wait to see. Also, as we go into the Monday Night Football, the the Manning cast is calling this game as well between Bills and Broncos. Broncos Bills, excuse me. The Manning cast goes week 10, week 11 against Eagles and Chiefs, week 13 Bengals Jaguars, week 15 Chiefs Patriots. And then they have a wild card playoff game that is still to be determined. So there's only a couple more of these. So I can't wait to see what happens come Monday Night Football. Let me make sure I have everything before we get into the game recap. I think I do. Yes, we do. All right, game recap. So we went 2-2 this week, so our record's 34-21, which is not bad. It's actually really good. Let's first begin with Colts beating the Patriots. I said the Patriots could win this game. I did not know that this offense would be that bad. And I've said this before. The Patriots can't run their offense. with 2 running backs all the time. Their success is based on the running backs and tight ends. No wide receivers. They kicked 2 field goals. They missed they missed a field goal. It would've made it 10-9, or actually 7-6 heading into halftime. I mean 9-7 heading into halftime, excuse me. They missed a 35-yarder, so the field goal is and special teams itself has not been very good. Um, I get it. If they struggled, I get it, but at the same time, like, this is a nightmare if you're the Patriots because it keeps getting worse. And you got teams that they are very winnable games the next couple weeks. I don't know if they can win them though if they do an offensive showing like this. I don't know. And it wasn't like the Colts did anything special. They were fine, but sometimes fine is good enough. And it was good enough here. 16 points scored in this game. If you hit the under, you won. Moving on, the Browns, excuse me, the Browns upset the Ravens 33-13. At one point, this game was a 14-point difference between the Ravens and Browns. The Ravens were winning. And then the Browns score a touchdown. They're down 7. Lamar throws a pass, hits a Browns defender in the helmet. Ball ricochets, gets intercepted by Greg Newsome, who returns it for a pick 6. Then Dustin Hopkins misses the extra point. Ravens can't get down the field. Browns bring it right down the field. Deshaun Watson was playing through it. He got hurt, came back, played well. They go down. Hopkins kicks a game winner. Browns win 33-31. And if you're the Browns, you're excited for this win. You just beat the best team in football. I would be excited too. Because to me, the Ravens are the one team that can probably contend with the Chiefs. So let's say that. Moving on to the Lions and Chargers. This game, this is what the Chargers should be. They should be scoring a lot. They should be. They've not done it a whole lot this year. And with some suspect coaching, they haven't been able to. They've won games, but man, they shouldn't. As the Lions outlast the Chargers 41-38 in a game where the offense was in bunches in this game. As 78 points was scored, or 79 points were scored. 79 points scored in this game. That's impressive on its own. Riley Patterson hits a game winner in SoFi. There's times where I think the Chargers can be really good, and they miss opportunities. This was a missed opportunity. Can't seal the deal, end up losing the game. The Lions are now the only team in the NFC East, or in the NFC, that can probably really catch the Eagles for the number 1 seed. So, there you go. And finally, the Cowboys demolish the Giants 49-17 in a game that wasn't even really that close. Dallas took out their starters in the late 3rd quarter. Dak Prescott was, I think, 26 of 35 for 400 yards, 5 total touchdowns, 1 INT. He played really well. Actually was a franchise record. He has now the most 400-yard games in Cowboys history with 10. Everyone else has 9. So, he did a great job. And, the wide receivers, both Cooks and Lamb had over 100 yards and a touchdown in touchdowns. CeeDee Lamb had a rushing touchdown and a receiving touchdown. CeeDee Lamb becomes the first player in NFL history in in 4 consecutive weeks to have over 100 yard have 10 plus catches, over 150 yards. He's done 3 consecutive weeks where he's got those numbers, but he's had 4 games of under or over 100 yards. 3 consecutive games, though, of 10 plus catches, 150 yards. It's never happened before in history until CeeDee Lamb did it. Brandon Cooks led the team in receiving. I think he had 9 catches for 175 yards. He was really good. He probably would have gotten 200 if they would have stayed in. Um, Defense was good. They had 5 sacks. Tommy DeVito had no chance. Um, you could see the frustration starting to set in with the Giants. This year's not been what they hoped. Too many times they're moving the ball and can't score. They actually get a turnover, an interception from their defense, and they're on the 12-yard line, and they can't get a first down. Can't happen. Can't happen, and you could tell. I also like when coaches are aggressive, especially in that spot, but too many times did that happen for the Giants where they can't get a first down. Your defense gives you a gift, and you can't be opportunistic. And really, it would have been 49-10. The Giants took all the 3 timeouts within, like, the last 50 seconds of the game to go and score a touchdown. So, the game was pretty much over. Um, I thought Tommy DeVito played well. He did as much as he could do. The run game was what it was. But, like Greg Olsen talked about, you're at this point of just figure out who's gonna be on this team next year and who isn't. What talent do you have that you think could be on this team next year, and what ones are not? And that's how you have to play this, I think. And that's what this season has become for the Giants. Figure out who's gonna be on this team next year and figure out who's not gonna be. And there's a lot going in. This game, it's the Cowboys outscored the Giants in 2 games this year, 89 points to 17. And if you can do that, the Cowboys offense had 600 yards of offense. If you do that, you won't do that every week, but if you can do something close to that, you're gonna win a lot of ball games, especially when your quarterback's doing that, playing like that, because he was in sync with CeeDee Lamb and Cooks the whole game. There was one play there's 2 plays I wanna really say, actually. One play was Dak wants a play action. It's 2nd and long. He runs a play action. They keep the 2 tight ends in. Play action's out. And he knows he's gonna take a shot, but he has to wait for Brandon Cooks to get open. Dexter Lawrence gets free. Dak knows he's taking the shot, so he just throws it and Dexter Lawrence goes and just it's a great hit, good hit by Lawrence, and just goes in. There was just a thud. You could just see Dak when the replay happens, like, his face, he was like, "Ow." That hurt. That really hurt, and you could see Dak was, like, on the ground for, like, a couple seconds, just trying to catch his breath, and he was good. He was fine, but that was a tough throw, and he delivered it. He made that play. That's the one play of that okay, that's a quarterback right there. That's a starting NFL quarterback. That's the Cowboys quarterback when he can do that and know he's gonna take a hit. and still deliver that ball. And in this and the one for CD, this this is just how in sync you are, because you can't do this every week. You can't. There's a play where a Giants defender grabs Dak's ankle with his hand, and Dak kinda shakes him off, but now he's on one leg, and he just fires it and gets all the air under it that he can, and CD's running a wheel route and sees the ball, and he's like, "Oh, okay," and just runs back to it. It's like, how does that happen? To the point that Dak just has to laugh. It's like, we're so in sync that even that worked. But those are 2 plays of that game where you're like, "Man, those 2 guys are in sync," and they've been in sync for the last month, and the Giants have to go back to the drawing board. But what do you guys think? What did you think of week and the week 10 NFL games of this week? And on Wednesday, we will do the previews for week 11. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hebert. Out.